Okay, next, I want to talk about, oh man, I don't even know how to start this. So last week I interviewed Andrew Yang, a former Democratic presidential candidate, former New York City mayoral candidate. During that conversation, one of the topics I brought up was, who from the right do you imagine would want to be part of your third party movement? And do you welcome everybody from the right? And he answered the question. And then when he said everybody's welcome, I followed up and I said, OK, well, what about like real extremists like white supremacists? And he gave me an answer. And I believe that he sort of botched the answer. And as a result, this has led to absolute chaos, including Andrew Yang tweeting about, of course, I don't support white supremacy. And this is a manufactured controversy. Now, it's not clear from his tweet whether he's attacking me or people reacting to what he said to me, but I'm going to play the full section of the interview for context. You will see that I was totally genuine in my question. It was not an attack. It was not a manufactured controversy. It was not a gotcha. It was just me following up to what his answer was to my first question. So let's take a look at the original clip from last week's interview. Who exactly that currently considers themselves to be on the right does Andrew Yang imagine bringing into the Forward Party? And to kind of make it a little more specific, you know, we would imagine that there's lots of progressive Democrats, more centrist Democrats, even some folks who really consider themselves centrist, maybe in the kind of line of even like a John McCain, who like the idea of some of the reforms you're talking about. And that all kind of makes sense to me. When I think about people who believe Donald Trump won the election, vaccines, the COVID vaccine magnetizes you, causes autism, whatever the case may be, et cetera, right? You know the package of ideas that I'm talking about. One, are those people that would even conceivably say this Forward Party idea that Andrew Yang proposes in a coalition with the left makes sense? And number two, are these even people that you want as part of your coalition?
First, let me say, I want everyone as part of the coalition. You know, if you can vote, we can disagree on a lot of things. It's all to the good. If we agree on the fact that this duopoly is not working, it's designed to turn us against each other and sink us. So that's one of the principles of the Forward Party is that, look, I can disagree with you on a lot of stuff, but if we can make common cause on this, then we can go back to disagreeing when the democracy is actually set up to succeed, when they're, you know.
So let me ask, so even, to make it really specific, if people on the right say the Republican Party is too centrist, I'm an extreme white supremacist or something like that, but I think we need to get, we need single transferable vote or whatever and campaign. You still welcome that because you're on the same page on that one issue?
Yeah, if they're going to help us transition to a more effective democracy, I don't need to know what their stance is on things that I disagree with. People have a sense of where I'm coming from.
Okay.
But right now, I believe that there is an existential threat to the country as a result of the greatest design flaw in the history of the world.
Okay. So his answer, which I don't think was a great answer, created a buzz. And a lot of people saying, wow, Andrew Yang welcomes white supremacy. Some people taking it out of context. Some people just saying, wow, that wasn't a really great answer. So Andrew Yang ultimately took to Twitter a few days after the interview, where he wrote, quote, I didn't think this needed stating, but people who hold ideologies such as white supremacy that are antithetical to grace and tolerance are not welcome in the Forward Party. Our movement for democracy reform is fighting to diminish harmful extremism. Now, remember, in the interview with me, he said that it would be fine, that they would be welcome as long as they're okay with ranked choice voting. That's what he said. I didn't trick him into saying that. He followed up with another tweet, which said, quote, relatedly, this kind of manufactured controversy is the kind of thing that's dragging down our public discourse and distracting us from the true issues at hand. He gave a bad answer. Racist is not the path to enlightenment. Now, I didn't know whether he was accusing me of manufactured controversy or others on Twitter of manufactured controversy. But in response to this, I tweeted, assuming this tweet is a response to the question I asked during our interview, I hope it needs no clarification that I was not attempting to manufacture controversy and asked the question completely genuinely after reading the book. Now, after the interview, Andrew and I spoke off air for a bit. And he said, your question about white supremacy, it actually got me thinking. And he said he hadn't considered it. He came up with the answer. You see him pause when he answers the question. He didn't say it was unfair or a gotcha or manufactured controversy. We had a perfectly nice conversation. So I hope and am leaning towards he was talking about people on Twitter weaponizing his answer. Now, that being said, I think he just did not answer the question that well. If I were him, the way I would have answered that question would have been to say, David, listen, I've denounced white supremacy many times during the last few years. It's hard to imagine too many white supremacists wanting to join a movement led by an Asian guy, but I can't control to whom these principles appeal. And just like any candidate might end up with anybody supporting them, I can't control that. But am I inviting white supremacists? Of course not. Do I think white supremacists will even be interested in this movement? Of course not. That's how I would have answered the question. He answered it a different way, which was to say, yeah, if they want ranked choice voting, then they're welcome. So what is this ultimately really about? For me, it's about who exactly from the right are we looking to pull in to this forward party? And we had a good conversation about that. And I don't know that necessarily more has to be said, but I'd be curious to your reaction to the entire exchange.